What happens when Hollywood's most beloved actress walks onto a late-night set expecting a fun conversation, only to face the most disrespectful interview of her career? In just 39 seconds of one dismissive comment, a talk show host's arrogance would shatter his reputation and spark the most shocking walkout in television history. The studio audience was buzzing with excitement. Emma Stone, fresh off another critically acclaimed performance, was the guest everyone wanted to see. She walked onto the stage with her signature warm smile, waving to the crowd as they erupted in applause. The energy was electric. This was supposed to be a celebration. Seth Meyers stood up from behind his desk, that practiced television grin plastered across his face. But something felt off from the very beginning. The handshake was stiff. The greeting was cold. And as Emma settled into the guest chair, smoothing down her dress, there was already tension crackling in the air. "So, Emma," Seth started, leaning back in his chair with an air of casual superiority, "I heard your new movie is getting some attention. Must be nice to finally get recognition for something." The audience laughed nervously. Emma's smile faltered for just a second. "Finally?" she asked, her tone light but confused. "I mean, I've been pretty fortunate with the reception to my work over the years." Seth waved his hand dismissively. Sure. But let's be honest. You've done a lot of forgettable stuff, too. I mean, can you even remember half the movies you've been in?" The laughter from the audience died completely. You could hear people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Emma's posture straightened. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. "I remember all of my work," she said carefully. "Every project has meant something to me. Every role taught me something." Right, Seth interrupted, not even looking at her now, shuffling his note cards like this was all routine. "But come on, some of those early films? Pretty rough. I tried watching one last week, and I couldn't even get through 20 minutes. Emma blinked. Twice. The smile was completely gone now. "Which one?" she asked, her voice steady, but with an edge that anyone paying attention could hear. "Does it matter?" Seth laughed, looking at the audience like they were in on some joke. "They all kind of blend together, don't they? That's the thing about actors like you. How you do so much stuff that most of it just becomes noise." "Actors like me," Emma repeated slowly. "What does that mean exactly?" Seth shrugged, completely oblivious to the fire he was stoking. "You know, the ones who take every role that comes their way. Quantity over quality. It's fine. It's a strategy. Some people are just happy to work." The audience was dead silent now. A few people gasped. Emma's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Her jaw was tight. But she kept her composure, took a breath, and tried to redirect. "Seth, I'm really selective about my projects, actually. I turn down far more roles than I accept. Every film I've done has been a conscious choice." "If you say so," Seth said with a patronizing smile. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You're everywhere. It's like you can't say no. Must be the money, right? I get it. Everyone's got bills to pay." Emma's face flushed. "That's incredibly insulting. I don't choose projects based on paychecks. I choose them based on the story, the director, the character, things that actually matter." Seth laughed again, that same dismissive chuckle that was becoming more grating by the second. "Come on, Emma. You don't have to pretend here. This is late night. We keep it real. You're telling me you did that superhero thing because you cared about the deep artistic meaning?" "I did that film because I loved the character and wanted to challenge myself in a different genre," Emma shot back, her voice rising slightly. "And honestly, I don't appreciate you sitting here questioning my integrity as an artist. Whoa, 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 Seth said, holding up his hands in mock surrender. Someone's a little sensitive tonight. Can't take a joke? A joke is funny, Emma said coldly. What you're doing is belittling my career and my choices. There's a difference. The audience started clapping. A few people even cheered. They were on her side. Seth noticed, and his expression darkened. He didn't like losing control of his own show. Look, he said, his tone shifting to something harder. I'm just trying to have an honest conversation here. But if you're going to be defensive about every little thing, this is going to be a very long interview. Every little thing? Emma's voice cracked with genuine anger now. You've spent the last 5 minutes trashing my work. How would you feel if I came on here and told you your show was forgettable? That you're just another late-night host who blends in with all the others? Seth's face went red. That's completely different. How? Emma demanded. How is that different? You sit behind that desk every night reading jokes other people write for you. At least I'm out there creating something, taking risks, putting myself on the line. What do you do besides interview people and act superior? The audience erupted, not in laughter, in applause. Loud, sustained applause. People were standing up. Seth looked furious. You know what, Emma? He said, his voice dripping with condescension. Maybe you should leave if you can't handle a simple conversation. Emma stood up immediately. Gladly. I don't need to sit here and be disrespected by someone who clearly has no appreciation for what actors actually do. Oh, please, Seth scoffed. Don't act like you're some tortured artist. You play dress-up for a living and get paid millions. It's not that serious. That was it. That was the moment everything shattered. Emma's face went from angry to ice cold. She reached up and unclipped her microphone, letting it drop onto the chair she just vacated. The sound of it hitting the cushion echoed through the silent studio. You know what, Seth? She said, her voice calm now, deadly calm. I've done hundreds of interviews. I've been asked tough questions. I've been challenged. I've been pushed. And I've always handled it with grace, because that's part of the job. But what you're doing isn't journalism. It isn't entertainment. It's just cruelty disguised as humor, and I won't be a part of it. Seth stood up too, his face twisted with anger and embarrassment. You're being ridiculous. Sit down and finish the interview. No, Emma said simply. I don't work for you. I came here as a guest, as a courtesy, to promote my film and have what I hoped would be a fun conversation. But you've made it clear that you don't respect me or my work, so I'm done. You can't just walk off my show, Seth said, his voice rising. Do you know how unprofessional that is? Emma actually laughed at that, a sharp, bitter laugh. I can't be unprofessional. You've spent this entire interview insulting me. You've dismissed my career, questioned my motives, and now you're upset that I won't sit here and take it? The audacity is truly breathtaking. The audience was going wild now. People were cheering, clapping. Some were even chanting Emma's name. Seth looked around, realizing he'd completely lost the room. His own audience had turned against him. Fine, he spat. Leave. We don't need you anyway. Clearly you did, Emma said, turning to face him one last time. Otherwise you wouldn't have booked me. But here's what you're going to learn tonight, Seth. You can't treat people like garbage and expect them to smile and play along. I have too much self-respect for that. And honestly, you should have more respect for your guests. Without us, you don't have a show. She turned and started walking toward the exit. Seth called after her, his voice desperate now. Emma, come on. Don't be like this. We're just having fun. She stopped. Didn't turn around. Just spoke over her shoulder. If this is your idea of fun, I genuinely feel sorry for you. And then she walked. Past the cameras, past the stunned crew members, past the audience that was now on their feet giving her a standing ovation. She walked with her head high, her shoulders back, every inch of her radiating dignity and strength. Behind his desk, Seth stood frozen. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. He looked at his producers in the wings, clearly panicking, clearly unsure what to do. This had never happened before. No guest had ever walked off his show, and certainly not like this. One of the audience members shouted, "You messed up, Seth." Another yelled, "Apologize!" But Seth just stood there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. No jokes came, no smooth recovery, nothing. He'd built his entire career on being quick-witted and charming, but in this moment he had absolutely nothing. The band didn't know whether to play. The cameras didn't know where to point. The whole production had ground to a complete halt. It was chaos. Beautiful, justified chaos. Backstage, Emma was being swarmed by crew members. Some were apologizing profusely. Others were asking if she was okay. A few were even congratulating her. One assistant approached nervously and said, "Seth's producers want to know if you'll come back out. They want to restart the interview." Emma looked at the young woman and smiled sadly. "No, I won't be doing that. But thank you for asking." "They said they'll cut the whole thing," the assistant continued. "They'll pretend it never happened." "That's their choice," Emma said. "But I hope they don't. I hope they air every second of it. People need to see that you can't treat others badly and expect no consequences." Back on stage, Seth finally found his voice. "Well, that was unexpected. Let's go to commercial." But the damage was done. The audience wasn't cheering for him anymore. They weren't laughing at his awkward attempts to smooth things over. They were murmuring amongst themselves, pulling out their phones, already texting and posting about what they'd just witnessed. The stage manager gave the signal, and the cameras cut. Seth immediately ripped off his own microphone and stormed off the set without a word to anyone. His producers rushed after him, but he waved them away. He disappeared into his dressing room and slammed the door. Meanwhile, Emma was gathering her things from the green room. Her publicist rushed in, face flushed, phone pressed to her ear. She hung up and looked at Emma with wide eyes. "It's already online," she said. "Someone in the audience filmed it. It's everywhere." Emma nodded slowly. "Good." "Good?" her publicist repeated. "Emma, this is going to be a huge story. Everyone's going to be talking about this." "Let them talk," Emma said calmly. "I did nothing wrong. I stood up for myself. If that's controversial, then so be it." Her publicist softened. "You're right. You absolutely did the right thing." He was completely out of line. "He was," Emma agreed. "And honestly, I'm tired of pretending that behavior is acceptable just because it's happening on television. We make excuses for these people because they're famous or powerful or because walking away seems difficult. But it's not difficult. It's actually the easiest thing in the world. You just stand up and leave." Back in the studio, the producers were in full panic mode. They gathered the audience and asked them not to post about what happened, offered them free tickets to future shows, tried to do damage control, but it was far too late. The video was viral, millions of views already, and the comments were overwhelmingly in Emma's favor. One comment read, "She's a queen for this. Good for her." Another said, "Seth showed his true colors tonight. Absolutely disgusting behavior." A third added, "This is what standing up for yourself looks like. Everyone take notes." In his dressing room, Seth sat on the couch with his head in his hands. His executive producer knocked and entered without waiting for permission. "We need to put out a statement," the producer said. "We need to get ahead of this." "And say what?" Seth asked bitterly. "Sorry I insulted one of the biggest actresses in the world on live television?" "Yes, actually," the producer said bluntly. "That's exactly what you need to say. You messed up, Seth. Badly. That whole interview was a disaster from start to finish. What were you thinking?" "I was trying to be edgy," Seth muttered. "I was trying to have a real conversation instead of the usual promotional softball nonsense." "There's a difference between being edgy and being cruel," the producer said. "You crossed a line, multiple lines, and now we're all paying for it." Seth looked up. "Yom, she'll get over it. They always do. Give it a week, and everyone will forget this ever happened." But his producer just shook his head. "You really don't get it, do you? This isn't going away. This is the kind of thing that defines careers. And right now, you're on the wrong side of it." Outside the studio, Emma climbed into her car. Her driver asked if she was all right, and she nodded. "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. I'm relieved." As the car pulled away from the building, she looked back at the studio one last time. She thought about all the times she'd swallowed her pride, laughed off inappropriate comments, played along with interviews that made her uncomfortable, all in the name of being professional, being likable, being easy to work with. Not anymore. She'd drawn a line tonight, a clear, unmistakable line. And on one side of that line was dignity, self-respect, and the refusal to be treated as less than. On the other side was everything she was leaving behind. The next morning, the story was the top headline on every entertainment news site. Think pieces were being written. Other actors were sharing their own stories of difficult interviews. The conversation had shifted. People were talking about the way guests were treated on talk shows, about the power dynamics, about respect. And at the center of it all was Emma Stone, who'd simply decided she'd had enough. In the days that followed, other celebrities started speaking out. They shared their support for Emma. Some revealed their own negative experiences with Seth. Others talked about the broader issue of hosts who used their platform to belittle rather than celebrate their guests. Seth tried to move forward. He came back to his show and made a vague apology about things getting heated, but never specifically addressed what he'd said or done wrong. He tried to joke about it, to minimize it, to make it seem like a misunderstanding. But his audience wasn't laughing anymore. Ratings started to drop. Guests became harder to book, and the incident became the thing he was known for. Not his years of comedy, not his political commentary, but the night Emma Stone walked off his show because he couldn't treat her with basic respect. Meanwhile, Emma's film went on to be a massive success. Her performance was lauded as one of her best. And in every interview she did afterward, when asked about that night, she gave the same answer. "I simply decided I deserved better." And I hope that moment inspires others to make the same decision. We teach people how to treat us. And that night, I taught Seth Meyers that I won't accept disrespect. Not from him. Not from anyone. It was a simple statement, but it resonated with millions of people.